Test. Okay. So the Orange County Board of Education is called to order, and I appreciate your indulgence and patience as we waited for the good Rabbi Dove, who is only available. He's a remarkable human being, just an incredible person. He's only available in this month because he teaches law. So it's real special when he gave it previously, so he's not here. So if you can, we're going to do a call to order, and then we're going to do a roll call right now. So give me about 60 seconds. So roll call.
Trustee Gomez,
Present.
Trustee Shaw,
Here.
Vice President Barkey,
Present.
President Williams,
Present.
and Trustee Sparks.
Here.
Very good. May I have a motion for the adoption of today's agenda?
So moved.
So move. I need a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Bar none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Very good. Now we're to the invocation. If you can please introduce yourself and tell us who you are, and we give you about 60 seconds.
It's plenty. Doug Hewson, pastor at Crossroads Christian Church, Corona, California. All deference to the rabbi. Of course, our tradition owes everything to his. And so with that, may I lead a word of prayer. God in heaven and in our hearts as well, we thank you for the gathering. It's of utmost importance as we consider children and their education. Would you give us the wisdom we need, this esteemed board and everyone who presents? Lead us and guide us forward. We thank you. We thank you in the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Amen.
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 Beautiful, sir. And at this time, we have the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by the good trustee Tim Shaw, and you are welcome to stand in doing such.
This time of Thanksgiving and holidays, let us give thanks in our hearts as we pledge allegiance to the greatest flag in the world. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Moving on with the meeting, introductions.
There are no introductions
No
at this
introductions.
meeting.
Very good. Public comments? Lena?
I believe Vice President Barkey has one.
Very good.
I do. Doug, I think you're back. Is that you, Doug Kusin? Yes. Public comment. Could have stayed up there.
Again, Doug Hewson, Doug Hewson, Corona, California, this time with a different hat. I'm board chair for Irvine International Academy. Superintendent Maharis, when he watches this on video, and esteemed board members and trustees, come with just a brief report, provided it in writing as well. Summary of our capacity meeting with your staff recently, and then the written answers to some questions that came up in the hearing last month. The capacity meeting really went great. I felt like the dialogue between our teams was robust. We were able to give with specificity and clarity answers that they needed. And now I see why at the last board meeting, nearly every charter praised the staff of OCBE because they really are. They're professional, polite, and they are expert in their area. Here's what I'm leaving with the board secretary, a copy for each board member. Summary from Dr. Scott and Principal Chung on our team. They gave answers to these questions posed in the November meeting. Questions about the grade level breakdown and projected attendance and enrollment, and some supporting evidence. So that'll be in the packet. Then we included the updated letter from Charter Asset Management. They'll be providing us with our initial funding should we need it. And there's a MOU and also a letter of understanding included. And then we went ahead and clarified the budgeted salaries for our teachers and made the comparison to Irvine USD. And then lastly, Principal Chung provided a daily schedule, our proposed daily schedule, which highlights our after-school enrichment programs. Those were the questions we wanted to address. I want to thank you again for your diligent consideration. It's been a wonderful journey this year. Our team's looking forward to January, and with that, I'll simply say Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other public comments? None.
No.
Okay, bar none. Moving on with our agenda, I will need motion for approval of our special meeting of October 27th, 2020.
So moved?
So move, I need a second. Second by Sparks. Any discussion? Amendments, edits? Barring none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on with the minutes of the November 4th meeting, I'll need a motion.
Move approval?
Move for approval by trustee Shaw and seconded by trustee Sparks. Any discussion, amendments, edits? Barring none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the consent calendar. May I have a motion for the consent calendar?
So moved? Second?
Okay, motion by Barkey, second
Lisa,
by
can you
by
move your mic
Sparks.
over? We're not picking up. Thank you.
So a motion by Barkey and a second by trustee Sparks. Any comments, edits? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, moving on to charter portion of our meeting here. And are there any submissions, Nina?
There are some submissions that were expected today, but I have not received verification that they came in. So
Okay.
I'll alert the board later on in the agenda.
Very good, very good. Okay, moving on to item number 4. And this is a charter school public hearing for Oxford Prep Academy. This is a renewal, and I will ask Araceli Chastain to facilitate this meeting.
Good evening, President Williams, trustees. Today, the board will hold a hearing to grant or deny the Oxford Preparatory Academy Saddleback Valley Renewal Charter Petition. OPA is a TK through 8th grade charter school located within the boundaries of the Saddleback Valley Unified School District. The school's current charter term will end on June 2021. The Orange County Department of Education staff report was published on November 17th, and notification was provided to the charter school, the school district, and this board. Per standards outlined in Education Code in accordance with a 3-tiered system based on the charter school's performance, OPA placed in the high performance category and is eligible for a 5, 6, or 7-year charter term. In addition to their academic performance, the school is fiscally strong with stable leadership, and data indicates that the school is serving all pupils who wish to attend. The charter school presented a complete petition for renewal that included reasonably comprehensive descriptions of any new requirements of charter schools enacted into law. Therefore, Orange County Department of Education staff recommend that the board approve OPA charter renewal petition for a 7-year charter term from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2028. Prior to public comments, representatives from OPA shall have equal time and opportunity, or 10 minutes, whichever is longer, to present evidence and testimony responsive to the Orange County Department of Education staff recommendations and findings published on November 17th. I now call Jill Marks, Executive Director of Oxford Preparatory Academy, to the podium.
This one, okay. That's better, thank you. Good evening, President Williams and trustees. My name is Jill Marks. I'm the Executive Director of Oxford Preparatory Academy. Our aspiration for charter renewal and hopefully a 7-year term is accompanied by a deep sense of pride and awareness of our responsibilities as an exemplary charter school in Orange County. On behalf of our school community, I want to express our appreciation for your meticulous study of our charter petition. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's questions. I can be seated.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
Araceli.
You can be seated, Jill.
Okay, thank you.
The hearing is now open for public comment. Associate Superintendent Boyd, are there any public comments?
There is one public comment, and that is Jill. If you want to go back up to the mic, sorry.
I think we're all getting used to this AV 1505 format, so I ditto. Thank you. So that's what I.
That
This
concludes
concludes
the
the
public comments.
Okay.
This concludes the public hearing. The board has three options for action regarding a charter petition renewal and material revision. Option 1, approve the charter petition for a 5, 6, or 7-year term. Option 2, approve the charter petition with conditions. This action would result in approval of the charter and require the school to address concerns raised by the board by established timelines. Option 3, deny the charter petition. Representatives from OPA are available to answer questions. President Williams, I now close the public hearing and turn the meeting back over to you.
Very good. Thank you, Araceli. Moving forward, are there any questions by the board for Jill? Yes.
Could you come up? Thank you. A couple of things that I just wanted to ask. Seems to be a lot of evidence that you want to provide field trips and perhaps longer trips for students. But looking at your budget, you have only $15,000 for field trips. And based on your enrollment, it's about $21 per student. That doesn't seem to line up with what your curriculum is saying about field trips. Can you explain that a little bit for me?
I think out of the classroom experiences are really important. Part of what we've done even before the pandemic is look at local experiences that are less costly and bringing resources into the school. So I think, oftentimes we have a very generous community. Oftentimes our parents will donate funds so other students can go, or their students can go on some extracurricular trips as well. But yeah, the funds are limited, and we're looking at creative ways in terms of having field trips. We've been doing field trips that are virtual this year, and looking at low-cost kinds of field trips. Also, we're looking at, usually field trips are limited one a year per grade. So they're not extravagant, but we're we are very careful in terms of what we can bring into the community and what we can afford. But our parents have been very generous and have donated funds for that purposes.
And then transportation for the field trips, is that included? Because again, that's just not a whole lot of dollars per student, so.
Agreed, yes. That would include the cost of transportation. So again, we have a generous community that provides for that as well. And we do have field trips budgeted. Amy has worked really hard on the line item pieces too. So,
Whenever you get to the
I'm just going to stand away.
My name is Amy Kernan. I'm our Chief Academic Officer at OPA. I also handle a lot of the overseeing some of the budget items. Like Ms. Marks said, we have been looking at some different alternatives for field trips, trying to have different people come into our sites because transportation is such a large cost, and it's a kind of an unnecessary extra cost that we have to pay for field trips. So looking at ways that we can bring those field trips to our students without having to, I guess, waste the money on busing. And then, like Ms. Mark said, also bringing, making it so that it's more like one field trip that is off campus for our students, looking at ways where we can fundraise or different grants. We had the traveling scientists through OCDE come in and do field trips for our students. So trying to get really creative so that we're not spending a large budget or asking parents to pay for anything. We do try to get the kind of donations. We use Jogathon and things like that to try to raise money for different things. But this year has actually allowed us to get more creative. If there's one positive with COVID, it has allowed us to get really creative and try to bring those things into our students without having such exorbitant costs.
I think there's a lot more access to virtual field trips with museums and things like that.
And some of them are places that they would never get to go, going to the Smithsonian or going to the Louvre or going,
Exactly.
all over the world without having those costs.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm glad you're there because my next question is probably going to be towards you too.
No problem.
Again, I have a concern about the professional development, staff development. I did not see there's a great description on page 47 of your professional development, but I didn't see a lot of support for that in your budget. So can you tell me about that?
So we've really actually been working a lot with Orange County Department of Education to bring their resources in. They're a lot more cost effective than some of the outside companies. So we worked with the EL department, and they did a 5-day training for our teachers, and it was just a couple $1,000, but provided great resources for our teachers. So working with them to try to reduce the cost. Plus, I've worked with a lot of their people through my years in the public school district, and they do a better job for much less cost. So trying to do things like that, as well as sending 1 or 2 teachers out to get information and bring that information back. I think a lot of times sending a lot of teachers, the whole giant group of teachers to conferences, it spends a lot of money on travel, on hotels, things like that. And they
Not to mention substitutes.
yeah, and they don't get that really deep understanding. They just get little snippets. So we're really trying to focus on a few goal areas, and then either work with Orange County Department of Education or really empower our staff, just a few of them, to get trained and then bring that back. And it makes it a lot more cost effective for the professional development, and allows us to build our own capacity within our organization and build those leadership skills in our own employees and build those content level experts. But again, one of the biggest areas was really working with OCDE. We've brought in their math coaches, we've brought in their ELD group to do different things, and then we're also working with their PBIS team. We have a team at each one of our sites that is going through this year the Tier 2 PBIS.
You mentioned your English learners. How many English learners do you have in your school right now?
I believe this year we have 51. We increased pretty significantly from last year. We've really actually been focusing quite a bit on our English learners over the last few years. I mentioned that we brought in OCDE for a 5-day training. We did notice, I think as you brought up before, that there was a little bit of a dip in our EL scores in between our first year and our second year. One of the reasons is actually because the first year our students did so well that I think 20-some of them reclassified. So then we were kind of left with a much smaller population, and then new incoming newcomers that came in. So it really sort of made our scores go like from way up here to kind of looking like they tanked. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that we were meeting the needs. So we really spent a lot of time over the last couple of years focusing on our English learners, and it's definitely paid off. We reclassified 63% of our English learners in 2019. So it was
huge. That's huge.
Huge. We had a huge celebration at our board meeting, so it was really exciting. But we want to make sure that since our English learner population has been increasing so much year after year, that we're providing those resources. So we've hired an English language TOSA who, through COVID, it's been great because she can actually do small groups all throughout the day with those English learners, and then provide ELD support and ELD classes to those students.
How was your ELAC?
Our ELAC was getting much better. Actually, we found that we may start Zooming in our ELACs all the time, just because families have such a hard time getting, it's usually at dinner time or in the mornings, and so I think at our last ELAC meeting, we had over 30 parents attend, which is huge for us. I mean, we don't have that big of a population, but, and everyone was participating and excited. We had people cooking dinner while they were doing it, but at least, it got them there and got them engaged.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you. That was all the questions I had.
Very good. Any other questions from the board? Otherwise, I will need a motion, and I'm going to make the motion. I'm going to make a motion that we adopt option number 1, which is to approve your petition for 7 years.
Woohoo! I will second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any discussion regarding that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
My one, I appreciate the 7 years. My only concern is, as I was looking at the 7 years, from 7 years from this point forward, this entire board could change in that 7 years. And we might leave another board with no knowledge of what has happened. So I just want to bring that to for your thought process. And that's where I struggle with that 7-year period. And I would rather see a 5-year, just for purposes of allowing the board, maybe we're all here, I don't know, but we may not be. And so it would give that other board an opportunity to go through this whole process again with the school to allow them to reassess.
I'd like to make an additional comment. I think any incoming members of the board would have access to the minutes and could get up to speed on any issues and also could reach out for any historical information that is needed. So I would like to stay with the 7-year.
And I
term.
also think that the staff here has been here forever, and I don't think they'll change, and they've got great historical knowledge. So I think that the staff would probably be in place, and actually in 5 years, all of us could be gone as well as 7.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to go with the 7 as well.
Tim? Any thoughts? You don't have to say anything.
No.
If you don't. Okay. Yeah, my only comments is that this board changes every 2 years, so while I appreciate the good trustee Gomez thoughts and ideas, and I do agree with some of the tenets of what she says, I think this charter, you folks have worked diligently and hard and don't deserve just 5 years. You get 2 free years. That's how I kind of look at it, because a lot of preparation to get where you got to today, correct? I mean, you worked really, really hard to get everything, all your ducks in order, to be able to present this to get it approved, and you worked hard, and I think you should be awarded that prize. So I think 7 years is good.
I agree, and I think that AB 1505 had so many challenges that we need to take advantage of the benefits, and that's one of the few benefits that we got as a charter community. So I think we should stick with the 7.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Just kudos to all the hard work you all have put in, and we're just so impressed with your proposal.
Thank you so much.
Very, very good. So we have a motion by myself, a second by trustee Barkey. Any further questions? Barring none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed? Okay, motion passes 4-1. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Moving on with our board agenda item, we will now move on to number 6, and this is the Scholarship Prep Charter School Renewal. And I see Araceli is available, and I ask you to facilitate this, Araceli.
Thank you. The board will now hold a hearing to grant or deny the Scholarship Prep Charter renewal. Scholarship Prep is a TK through 12th grade countywide charter school with one location within the boundaries of the Santa Ana Unified School District. The school's current charter term will end in June 2021. The Orange County Department of Education staff report was published on November 17th, and notification was provided to the charter school district and this board. Per standards outlined in Education Code, Scholarship Prep placed in the high performance category and is eligible for a 5, 6, or 7-year charter term. The charter school presented a complete petition for renewal that included all reasonably comprehensive descriptions of any new requirements of charter schools enacted into law. The charter school's data shows that the school is serving all pupils who wish to attend, and the past performance of the school, including their academic performance, fiscal health, and successful operations, indicates the likelihood of future success. The Orange County Department of Education staff recommend that the board approve the Scholarship Prep Charter School Renewal Petition for a 7-year charter term from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2028. Prior to public comments, representatives from Scholarship Prep shall have equal time and opportunity, or 10 minutes, whichever is longer, to present evidence and testimony responsive to the Orange County Department of Education staff recommendations and findings published on November 17th. I now call Jason Watts, Chief Operations Officer for Scholarship Prep, to the podium.
Good evening, President Williams, trustees, Superintendent Maharis. My name is Jason Watts, and I'm the co-founder and COO of Scholarship Prep Schools. I'm proud and humbled to be here before you this evening, close to nearly 5 years since our initial approval to operate our first charter school, serving students and families throughout Orange County, including some of our most underserved foster and homeless youth. I want to quickly run through a summary of our many accomplishments to best reflect on what our team has been able to achieve in just 5 short years. Our many support services for foster and homeless youth now include transportation to and from school, clothing, and meals 365 days a year. We have partnered with at least 18 different organizations to support our homeless and foster youth. We have increased our overall enrollment from 307 students in year 1 to over 500 students and at capacity now. In 2017-18, we had the #1 math and ELA growth of any public school in Orange County. In fact, our math growth that year was actually #1 in the entire state of California. We've received the California Distinguished School Award, WASC accreditation, a federal grant to support the replication and expansion of our successful program, which has also enabled us to grow a strong, diverse, and highly skilled leadership team to buoy our growth efforts. Speaking of growth, we are now preparing, finally, to welcome our first class of 9th graders next fall. We've had clean audits each and every year and are fiscally solvent. And in just the last 6 months, we've now attained 113 homeless and foster students, which we're very proud of. That comprises more than 20% of our total student population. We've partnered with UC Irvine's Ocean Project to seek housing solutions for foster youth. And we've successfully navigated distance learning and a hybrid instructional program during COVID while maintaining an attendance rate of over 97%. We have an incredible team leading our Santa Ana campus, headed by our amazing principal, Ms. Denise Alte, who's here tonight. Without question, she, along with her entire staff, have earned this opportunity for a 7-year renewal. It's exciting to know that we can start with a passionate first grade teacher, and in just a few short years, she is successfully leading an entire school community. We have positively and longitudinally altered the pathway for our students, who now not only know about college, they believe they will one day be there. The foundational goal of Scholarship Prep was to mitigate the gap between the students' innate abilities and talents and higher educational opportunities, so that one day they can pursue a college degree. Now, with the ability to add high school to our TK program, thank you very much for the approval, the pathway becomes much more direct and clear, and we are proud to be able to walk that journey with our scholars. Thank you for your time, support, and belief in Scholarship Prep.
Thank you.
The hearing is now open for public comments. Associate Superintendent Boyd, are there any public comments for this agenda item?
There are. Denise Alte.
Good evening, board members, OCTE staff, and Superintendent Mijares. My name is Denise Salute, and I'm the proud principal of Scholarship Prep Santa Ana. And thank you, Mr. Watts, for those kind words. On behalf of all of our Scholarship Prep family, we want to thank you for the opportunity to serve Orange County as the only, excuse me, I'm getting text from my community.
You're doing great.
I'm getting text from my community letting me know that they're watching us right now. Excuse me, shout out to them. Okay, I'll continue. On behalf of our Scholarship Prep family, we want to thank you for the opportunity to serve Orange County as the only TKA charter school dedicated to serving students who are historically underserved, especially the youth experiencing homelessness and those currently under foster care. In the past 5 years, we have devoted our hearts and minds as administrators, teachers, and staff to provide a world-class education that places our students on a scholarship pathway. We believe in transformative change not only for our students, but for their families as well. We know that we are building lifelong connections with our students and families through trust and by creating opportunities and resources that will impact and empower our parents, guardians. In doing so, we are supporting an overall better quality of life for our community. We are also so grateful, and our parents are just as much, for the opportunity and the ability to have continuity of our program by creating a TK-12 system for college. We are grateful to be able to strengthen our current community partnerships while building more. For example, we are so proud to share that this Saturday we are hosting a holiday cheer drive-through celebration in our families who are most in need to receive groceries, toiletries, and gifts for the holiday season. Thank you for your constant support these past 5 years, and we're very hopeful for 7 more. Thank you.
Next, we have Jason Watts. Okay. So, Araceli, that concludes the public comments.
This concludes the public hearing. The board has 3 options for action regarding a charter petition renewal. Option 1, approve the charter petition for 5, 6, or 7-year charter term. Option 2, approve the charter petition with conditions. This action would result in approval of the charter and require the school to address concerns raised by the board by established timelines. Option 3, deny the charter petition. Representatives from Scholarship Prep are available to answer questions. President Williams, I now close the public hearing and turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, Araceli. Okay, going to this portion where we make the decision. May I have a motion on Scholarship Prep, item number 6 here?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to give them the longest possible renewal of 7 years because I think that they have proved that they deserve it.
And I will second that. I do want to make one comment, though. There's an edit that needs to happen, discrepancy on page 23 in our packet. On page 1 of 9, the draft agreement, it says 5-year period beginning July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2028. So the dates are correct, but the number needs to be 7.
Ah, correct. Yep. Very good.
And only a college professor can catch those type of things. Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve Scholarship Prep for 7-year duration here, and we have a second. Any questions, thoughts before we take the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
If I could have Scholarship Prep come to the podium. Thank you so much for being here. My questions again are similar to the previous application. There's a lot of discussion in your application about professional development, but yet the budget for travel and conferences is only about $22,000 a year for this upcoming year. By the time you get to 25-26, it's nearly doubled. So my concern is that your description, I'm not sure quite matches the budget, so maybe you could explain that a little bit for me?
Sure. So I think there's a couple components of this. Number one, we would be adding 9th grade students next fall, taking on additional students, taking on additional staff, and certainly new grade levels. So there is one component of the increase in need for professional development. We also have, obviously, this COVID transition that we're all going through, and so we're kind of anticipating what will be able to happen. We certainly put a lot of effort and time, and certainly also financial support in professional development. I believe the amount that you quoted is about $1,000 per teacher, how it works out per year, which covers what I believe is 3 courses per teacher through OCDE, and we also partner with SDCOE, San Diego County Office of Education, and they've been very gracious to allow our Santa Ana campus staff to also participate in things like induction. So we're able to take advantage of both opportunities. But again, about $1,000 per teacher initially, and then as we progress forward and add the high school grades, that should dramatically increase just based on the need.
Okay, and I thought I saw somewhere where there was about 2 to 3 hours, oh yes, on page 111 of 112, and talking about professional development for staff. You also indicate there's about 2 to 3 hours per week. So is that out of a different budget, or what's happening there? Because again, that didn't seem to line up.
So our weekly professional development on our minimum days, if you will, are internal support systems. So whether it's the site administration, whether it's our home office team that will provide professional development. There are opportunities for us to bring in folks external for those meeting times. So again, that's this dedicated time every single week that could be internal, could be external. And also it allows the teachers to have common time for planning and data analysis, et cetera. So again, most of that is internal. Only occasionally do we bring in folks externally on those 2 to 3 hour periods per week.
Okay, so that budget is coming out of somewhere else for those 2 to 3 hours a week.
It's just like, again, our internal staffing.
You also talked about your physical education. You mentioned things like swimming, soccer, and softball. But yet I did not find in the budget where you either had rental fees or something else, or do you have enough space on your campus to have things like softball and soccer? I don't think you have a pool, do you?
We have no pool, and I'm trying to recollect the actual electives and physical education opportunities that are in the petition as you're quoting them. But as we stand now, we do offer soccer at our existing campus. We do not have a pool, and we don't have a space for a pool yet, but we are in the process of acquiring an additional facility to allow us to further expand through the grades 9 through 12. Now, with that expansion, would we have space for a pool? Most likely not. I think those electives that were mentioned were more options and not necessarily definitive that we would offer specifically these ones set in stone.
Well, when they're in your petition, it gives the impression that you would be offering these. So if I'm looking at something like a swimming as an option, I would expect to see that there would be perhaps rental fees or something, to go use a local, share a high school pool or something like that, or a community pool. And then later on in your petition, you also mention as an elective, baseball. Wasn't on page 73, but it's later on page 80. So again, I'm just trying to reconcile. I know you're trying to go from the, into the 9th and into high school, but those are the kinds of things that, would incur more fees or rentals and things like that. If you start having competitions, you're going to have transportation and all those things. And I didn't quite see that when I looked at the budget. So my concern is that if you're out recruiting families to come to your school and you're offering certain programs, that you don't necessarily have the budget for those things yet. So that's where my concern is.
No, those are good points. I think my response to that would be a couple things. Number one, we've been very fortunate to maintain a very solid fiscal budget year after year. And so we have the financial wherewithal to be able to support these programs that you're talking about, whether it's rental fees for, say, a swimming facility, et cetera. Not necessarily would we have every one of these individual sports per se, but absolutely our desire is to have a competitive sports program. I know that myself, I have 4 kids, and 2 of the 4 have been competitive in sports, and that's a big deal for me. My degree's in sports medicine. That's a big deal for me. So, and our academic team knows that. I remind them about this all the time. So we kind of have an ongoing discussion about that. So that's certainly important to us, but we do have the budget to be able to support that, whether it's specifically listed line item in the budget. I don't have that in front of me to be able to tell you that. I trust obviously what you're saying, but I know that we would support that regardless.
Well, I just want us to be able to do that if we promise that and families go to a school with that expectation, that we're able to do that. And I'd also like to ask about your English learner population. How many students do you have?
Total English learner students?
Yes.
As of, I believe, last year's reporting period, we had 107.
Okay. So how is your ELAC doing?
That question is probably better served for our principal.
Okay.
Hello.
we are just over the moon about our families and how they've transitioned. So many of our families didn't use a Chromebook, hadn't used a laptop before. And so we're just so proud that Zoom has allowed the opportunity, again, to get our parents for wherever they are by the Chromebooks that we provide for our students. So with our ELAC, we were successful, of course, when it was on the physical campus. We used to provide childcare as well, along with our PEP squad. We're heavily involved with our parents. Right now, ELAC, of course, is what we are focusing on in the month of January because of everything that we've been through. Our focus was distance learning. We tried hybrid. So absolutely, our parents are ready to be involved with parent workshops and continue our work that we did with ELAC as we involve them in everything that has to do with English language learners.
Well, I would hope that that would continue.
Of course.
You know, there are some advantages, obviously, to having your families connected, and they can participate from afar if they can't get to campus for whatever reason.
And just like the lady who shared before, parents are actually they like the IEPs even through Zoom, that we're able to accommodate them wherever they are, whatever situation they may be. It's a barrier that we have removed in having that available to them at any time.
Yeah. So do you find that in this situation that your families are able to connect to the internet? Are you able to issue hotspots if they don't?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely, Superintendent Gomez. We have done all that we can through our home office to provide that to our students and just being able to, support them in whatever best that we can, and which is hotspots. We have our list, priority, of course, to McKinney-Vento and foster youth students and those that are most in need. And we're continuing, we anticipate as we go back to distance learning as well, that we are going to acquire much more,
Okay.
many
great.
more.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Very good. Any other board questions, concerns, comments?
I just want to make a comment. Denise, I don't know if it's humanly possible to hear you present and not have a smile on my face. You are just a joy, and I think all the young people are just so fortunate to have you as a principal. Your enthusiasm is contagious.
Thank you. They fill our hearts with so much love. This amazing community is so deserving, and we do everything for them. We think of them all the time, and everything we do is for our community and their parents as well that have just been able to benefit from what we've been able to provide. Thank you.
Well, and you also did a great job when Tim and I came and visited to really let us know what was going on. I mean, the presentation was amazing, so we appreciate that. And I don't think you mentioned, Jason, the Carson Readers Room that you have either, and I was actually the person, I read the first book in that room, so that's quite an accomplishment. Very few schools earn a Carson Readers Room, so.
I was thinking I only had 3 minutes,
Ah,
so I
got
kept
it.
kept
Got
everything
it.
short for your
Okay.
benefit.
Okay.
But there's many
All right.
more, and I'm sure
Yeah.
Denise can rattle off 10 times more than that, so.
Very
We're
good.
actually, on that note, we're getting ready to nominate our new Carson Scholar so that we wish them luck so that they can
Oh.
get their Carson Scholarship. this year.
Excellent, excellent. Love to hear that. Great.
That's wonderful. Okay, for board action number 7, we have motion by trustee Barkey, seconded by trustee Sparks. It is for a 7-year extension of this renewal. And barring that there are no further questions by the board, I will call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Oppose.
Abstained. Motion passes 4-1. Congratulations. Very good. Okay, moving on to,
Dr. Williams, if I could just take you back, you had asked about submissions for charter schools, and I have been able to confirm that there are 2 submissions. Suncoast Prep and Unity will have renewals, and you will hear those next month. We'll be sending the board binders and their flash drives in their Friday updates.
very good, very good. Okay. Thank you all very much. Okay, moving on with our board agenda, moving on to number 8. That is the first interim report for the 2021 year. Have a motion to begin discussion on the interim report? Okay, I'll make the motion to begin discussion on item number 8. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have motion, a second. Okay, so let's get into it. Trustee Gomez, would you like to start us off with some
Since I
questions?
started on both the other things, I'll defer to someone else.
not only did you start, but you're the only one. I'll start to the left then. Trustee,
I'm multiple.
your mouth is full. Okay. Then how about this? I will start. So just for the record, Renee, this is the 2021 interim budget. It is different than the ones that we have had in the past. And could you give us an overview why it's a little bit different?
It is different this time because it is including for this year the budget parent overview. For both the OC program and also for the college and career academy. If you remember during the adopted budget, we had said that the LCAP would be by December 10th. The state changed that, and so you had adopted the learning continuity plan in September, I believe, earlier this year. And so this is the budget plan that goes with that. And so instead of a separate action, the state is saying you can just put it with your first interim for approval. So that's why it's a little bit different this time.
So are we adopting just one interim for both? Is that
Well,
what we're doing?
Well, the interim is our regular interim that we would normally do in December, which is an update to the adopted budget.
Sure.
And then you're doing two separate budget parent overviews, but they don't have to be separate actions, if that makes sense.
Okay, so we're not taking action on those then?
The state says you can take them as a whole, unless you're not going to approve the interim, and then you would have to take separate actions, if that makes sense. They said they can be included as part of your first interim budget, is basically what they've said.
Okay, so this parent overview, this is new because of the LCAP?
Because
The
of
new
COVID.
LCAP.
Yeah, because of COVID, they didn't do the LCAP, you did the learning continuity plan, which you guys were part of.
LCAP version 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, it's called I guess LCP instead of LCAP.
Right.
And so this is just the financial information that goes with that.
Okay,
But
so,
it's in a very condensed format for parents.
okay, so this is for parents. Do parents actually receive it, or do we give it to them? How does that work?
So it's posted on our website, it's posted on the website, but it's also shared with the parents during our advisory meetings, parent advisory meetings.
Oh, okay. So this is what so if we made a motion in a second, and does it include approving that then too? Oh, okay, that's what I was unclear of. Very good. Okay, so the, going through this, just a couple commentaries, and we'll probably get into this. For the record, I only got the DAT file 2 days ago, so we really haven't gotten a chance to look at the DAT file. So we're probably going to move this to January for official approval, because I don't have those DAT file overviews.
So in that case, so I have a couple options for you. We would need to do the parent overview of separate portions if you're not going to adopt the budget as a whole.
Okay.
And also, remember.
Is that statutory?
I'm sorry?
Is that statutory that we have to adopt it, the parent
They had
overview?
a date, I believe, there was they had to be adopted by December 15th.
Oh, for the parent
For the
overview.
parent overview, right? And then the interim budget, the board doesn't technically need to approve. You have to approve expenditures over 25,000, which I did include in your booklet.
Right, thank you. So we have to approve it because of the expenditures over 25,000.
Well, that would be the board's program.
Right.
But
Okay.
that was what your plan, that's what we followed last year, so I included those just in case you wanted to separate those motions.
Right. So on page number 3, and this is more higher level thought and goals and reflection of the department. I would like to see in the future, on page number 3, the first paragraph, it says a budget summary is an overview that reflects the goals and priority of the county superintendent. I think the County Board of Education needs to be put in there. I don't think these are just the budget priorities of the superintendent. I think it's for the board also. So I'd like to see that in there. So when we say it's aligned with the local control, is that with the LCP or the LCAP?
So in most years it would be the LCAP.
Right,
And this year I noted since that wasn't done, it's with the LCP.
okay, so, okay. And,
But just to clarify, we do still follow the plans that we laid out in that very large LCAP. Those don't just get thrown away. We still are using those to guide our focus for our students.
okay. So, I don't want to take up all the time. I will ask more questions, but are we ready to pass the torch? Tim, do you have any questions?
No.
No? Okay. Lisa?
Well, I like your suggestion of, on page 3, adding the Board of Education as part of it. And I wonder if on page 2, the first paragraph as well.
What, first paragraph on page 2?
Yeah, about, you know, maybe there should be an about in terms of our role.
Yeah, I do agree with that. What are you thinking and what are you suggesting? What type of language would you like to see?
You know, we can pull language from the website of what the role of the Board of Education is
Okay.
and add it there.
You know, something akin to, and I'll just throw it out there, the County Office of Education has 2 legal entities, the County Board of Education and the County Superintendent of Education, something along that line.
Yeah.
Okay. Thoughts on that?
I'd be agreeable to that.
Okay.
That's good.
Tim?
That's a good idea.
Okay. Becky?
I'd just like to see what the language is first. We can certainly consider it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything specific in mind, but I do like just a little bit more inclusive language that includes the board as playing a role in the budget here. Okay, so let's go to the variances, and that is on
104.
page 104. Okay, so let's start at the very top. In our last budget, Renee, we had found that there was $4 million that was put into the object code, and help me out here, Mary, is $4 million that was put into an object code for textbook. Where did that money go in this budget?
I actually gave you under holding account. I actually have shown you all the programs.
What
that
page
are
is that on?
there. It's on page 108. So it lists every program, and you can see what was the adopted budget and first interim budget. So you had some moving in and out. New ones, old ones.
But that money on the textbook that was there in the budget that we adopted in June, does that get put into another object code? How does that work?
Textbooks are still there, $4,100, and so you can see that increased by $18,460.
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm on page 104. The $4 million that you guys were discussing was the holding account that we used before we distribute it to textbooks, services, salaries, whatever that is. And so the question you had is, well, what are those programs? And so that's why I included it in the budget, for you to see all the different programs.
Okay, so help me out. So the adopted budget, the 2021 adopted budget, it has here on page 104, 261,718.
That's for textbooks, under 4,100.
That's 4,100. Okay. And what was that in the budget that we adopted? How much was
So
in
that
that?
shows you the adopted budget was 261,718. The first interim is 280,178, which is an increase of 18,460. So I show you 2 columns, what it was at adopted and what it is at first interim.
Okay. So when we go down, we look at the increases. The general supplies, you're anticipating that the variance will be $1.4 million.
Correct.
And is that because of the CARES Act and money and funds that are coming in there?
1.5 million of that is.
Okay, and that's just a one-time check that's being, do we know it's for sure that it's coming, or is that just anticipated?
We already have it.
Oh, you already have it?
And we have to spend it by December 30th.
Oh, when did we receive that money?
We received it over different time periods. I think the last allotment, I'm not exactly sure the date, but it's a total of almost $7 million.
Okay. And the safety and health supplies, it went up at 202,000. Is that because of the PPE that's required because of the COVID?
Yeah, even though we received a lot of PPE from the state, we received a lot of face shields, sanitizer, masks, those type of things that have gone out to schools that the state had supplied. There's still a lot of additional things that staff need, and the burn rate's pretty high on some of those.
Oh, yeah. And they're difficult to get. I
We-
can't get any from my office.
Really, we've done pretty well with being able to get most supplies. We've got some contracts in place, and so we had a problem in the beginning, but now we've got it pretty good, and we make sure we have an adequate stock for at least 2 months.
Yeah, it's interesting that the private doctor doesn't have any supplies, but the hospitals and the schools get them. There
Well, we
seems,
don't use an
unfair.
N95, so it's called volume buying, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they probably have a little more buying power than you do, I'm guessing.
yeah, it's like getting the COVID vaccine. I'm on the second tier. Even though I treat COVID patients, I give them immunizations. I'm still the low guy of the totem pole, but CVS and Walgreens is gonna get it before I will ever be able to give it to my patients. Okay, so as we look down here, there is a big increase in 4,300, and that takes care of all that above it. Is that it?
Right.
Okay, so
Supplies.
it goes from 12 million to 14 million with a 1.8 million dollar increase. Is that
Can I
correct?
just ask you particularly about the subscriptions, what that is in the 4,300s?
I'm sorry, where
It's
at?
43, I penned over it, I think it's 4355 or 4356, the subscriptions, what does that include?
The subscriptions would be, like, we have a lot of nurses who get subscriptions to certain periodicals. And so a lot of it could be teaching things. So whoever in the organization is buying subscriptions, that's what it would go under.
And is COVID response, was that why we've seen an increase in that? Is that unusual?
More than likely, or maybe because we didn't, we're not going to some of the conferences, maybe we're doing a periodical. We've also seen an increased cost in some subscriptions also,
Okay.
which is interesting since a lot of them are online now. You think there'd be cost savings?
Yeah, okay.
Moving on to page 105. Supplies and equipment, sub-agreements didn't go up very much. Travel, obviously, that we cut back a couple years ago is down, as well as conferences and workshops. That's way down probably because there's no conferences being held, I assume.
There's no travel for conferences. And so you will see under registrations, we've actually gone up a little bit in that. Because since there are so many that are virtual, whereas before we would have sent maybe 2 or 3 teachers or staff, now we may be sending 8 or 10 or more because they can attend virtually. And so that is where you see a small increase.
Is the registration fee for these conferences the same as though it's in person?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. They don't seem to be as much reduced as I would assume.
Right,
they would be.
yeah, I remember, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem like there's a great discount,
Yeah, I do think, from some of the program, what they're saying, it still costs them quite a bit of money to provide the program. And I think technology is very expensive for a lot of these forums also.
Yeah.
But in the narrative, I did show you that we had reduced the travel and conferences by 47% and 51%. In addition to the cuts that was made in July.
The object code, and you're gonna have to help me out for this object code, but the one where we had all those social tables that we were buying, that we cut back 25%, what object code is that? Do you recall, Fan?
I believe it was 5230.
5230.
So that would be conference registration.
So are we still paying for these tables?
I don't see that we've had those events.
I was going to say, probably due to the circumstances and times, we probably haven't been going to any of those. So what happens to those funds when we don't spend them? I assume we're not spending them, we're not just giving
Well,
the
it looks
money
like
away.
that category's up a little bit, but that's because of registration for other stuff.
Yeah.
That's right.
So can you tell me what's going on with those events
I don't know. off
that
the top of my head. I can take a
we
look at that.
budgeted?
I haven't seen it, but I don't see every purchase that comes through either, so I could take a look at that. Most of the conferences that I saw were larger conferences, mostly teacher related.
If I may, what's the difference between 5100 sub-agreements and 5810 consultant instructional?
Sub-agreements is when you're passing money through to another agency to do the full service. And so say transportation is our biggest one. And that's actually an accounting guideline because we can't take in direct on those dollars in the 5100. And so 5810 is going to be your instructional consultant. So that's a consultant that's going to do it direct instruction related items. So that would be more for teachers on the instructional side. And then we also have consultants that are non-instructional. And that's under
And what are they
58.
consulting on if they're non-instructional?
It could be more on management techniques, on a whole myriad of things, but they're not doing instruction to an instructional person. So the coding for accounting breaks it up between what is direct instruction in classroom versus anything other than that.
Okay.
And on page 105, on 5810, the K through 12 strong workforce, is that a one-time funds that are coming in? Is that CARES Act money?
No,
Or is that state money?
Strong Workplace used to be Pathways, and now it's the K-12 Strong Work. So that is Career Tech program.
So it wasn't in our adopted budget before, is that because it changed names from Pathway?
We weren't sure what the allotment would be, and so what they did differently is it was going to Rancho Community College District, and they were passing the funds through to us. And so since we weren't exactly sure what that funding would be, if we would receive it, we didn't include it in the budget. And we since have got notification that it's coming through Rancho still, but directly to us. And so that's why we've included expenditure. And most of that money flows back out to our partnering agencies.
Okay, so in the past, it just is a way of how you put it in the budget, that it was different, and we didn't have in our budget that we adopted in June, but we do now.
Right. Which is what the interim does, right? Any updates we've had since June.
It's updating the checkbook, as I think you have said before. Okay. And Becky made a couple comments on field trips. Our service contract for field trips, it looks like it's gone down. Why is that?
Because we're not.
Not
able to
doing
do
field trips.
We are trying to do virtual, and we are doing a lot with field naturalists and things like that. But we have, limited, we didn't have students, in classrooms, and so now we do. And so we are utilizing that, so we have decreased that.
So our kids are in the classroom,
In most cases, yes.
in most cases. Has there been anybody who's contracted COVID in that age group? Out of curiosity?
Yes,
We do.
yes.
How many?
At least 9 that I know of.
9. Is that in a cohort? In a particular school, is that 9 separate events? It's in a cohort. That would be important to know. When did that occur?
It's been over the last few months, and so it is for the Sunburst program.
The what?
Sunburst program.
Oh, the Sunburst
Yeah, I
program.
I think we heard about that. Actually.
Okay, so it's
That's
only
an
been in the
older-
Sunburst program, not any of the other programs.
I think there have been 1 or 2 other ones at different sites.
Okay.
But I think from what I've read, Sunburst is back up and running and they're fine. Is that not true?
That's not true now.
Oh, interesting.
What happened?
Another outbreak.
A second one?
Is the services contract advocacy 5852, what does that entail? Is that the lobbyist?
Yes.
What is that?
5852. They changed it to advocacy instead of lobbyist.
Oh,
You'd asked to have that broken out to a separate object code.
right. Okay, so that's down. Why is that decrease?
We reevaluated some of the contracts that we had and
Mhm.
made some changes.
And what contracts were those?
One of them was for Bob Canavan,
Mm-hmm,
was reduced.
okay.
And then school services, we have their full contract under advocacy, and that's only a very small portion of what they do. Most of what they do is financial reports, and so, and financial management, and so we separated out their advocacy part from their, the financial management tools that they have.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I go back to 5810? I'm not sure that I totally understood the increase there and why that was. I understood that the difference from whatever but I didn't understand what all those dollars are
So
going
you
for.
have the K-12 strong workforce, which is career technical, and so a lot of times in those classes, we were paying consultants who are specific teachers, or it could be money going out to other districts. And then you have the impact for early learning was an increase of 77,000.
Okay,
And then the IEEP, which is, it's an inclusive early learning program. And so that's where we are doing special education and doing inclusive learning with general ed. And so that's the first of its kind type of program. We're excited for that. That is in cooperation with Centralia School District. And so, because we don't have general education students in our special schools program. And so that's new there. And then we also have, we reduced a whole bunch of different programs also besides adding those. So there's
Okay.
$3,000 in reductions.
okay. So it's mainly coming out of the K-12 strong workforce.
Right.
Okay.
So moving on with, to page 106 on hearings and legal costs. Is that a new title that we were giving this? Hearings and legal costs?
That's what it's always been called.
It's always been called that, okay. And you have attorney fees for board and superintendent, and nothing's filled in there. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Oh, probably because the increase actually wasn't over 25,000.
Okay,
The increase was only 8,900.
Okay, and do we have that broken down, the legal things going?
It actually is in the narrative
Where is that?
on page 24.
I feel like I've asked this before, but can you tell me again what the UUAL is?
And I'm going to make sure I say this correctly now. It's supposed to be unaudited actuarial liabilities, but I'm missing a letter in there somewhere.
And that's the Oster's lawsuit, is
That's
that
the
right?
Oster's, correct.
Okay, and can we have an update on that?
The update is that it's settled,
When did that happen?
probably about 2 weeks ago.
And why hasn't the board told of that? I mean, we haven't got an update since Mr. Real gave us an update on the chronology of the event. And Tim, this is going to be new for you because you weren't here when all this began back in 2015, when the Ulcers is Orange County Employee Retirement System. They came after us and UCI, that we owed them about $3.3 million, and UC Irvine owed about 13.5, and these are all based upon actuarial studies that it gets rather complicated because it's not, at the time we came from the supervisors and we became our own entity, our employees had the opportunity to go to STIRS and PERS, but they also had the opportunity to stay in OSERS. So some of them did stay in OSERS, they didn't go to STIRS and PERS. And it's just like, I just heard the other day, one of the beneficiaries from the Civil War personnel.
It was like
died.
Yeah. the
So it
last
lasts a
Civil
long
War-
time.
The last Civil War pensioner got finally died.
Finally died, yes. So these things
Unbelievable.
last a long time. And so we, way back in 2016, you can help me out here, Dr. Hars, if I get the dates wrong. It started by OSERS coming to us in March saying that we need to give the money because they did this actuarial study. And then we ended up being the plaintiff in the case, suing OSERS, and later we lost that case. We appealed it to the state appeals court. Tell me if I'm wrong, Dr. Harris. And we lost that in the appeals court. In the meantime, we owed them some money for the fees. So I believe our fees were $1.2 million to the law firm at the time, and then we didn't pay the fees that were tagged on by OSERS, and then we got sued again, or the superintendent got sued, and that's what you're referring to, the settlement? Okay, and so did you agree to pay them?
May I add, and you've summarized it nicely, Dr. Williams. What they did was to call it like an administrative fee as opposed to
Legal fees.
And yeah, we agreed to pay that. But the genesis of this was that out of the blue one day, we get a bill for excessive amount of money. I don't remember exactly how much the bill was. And at the time, Wendy Baker, who held the position of Dean West as associate superintendent, she was floored. So we wanted to know, what is this? They said, well, you owe us this money, and it was based on actuarials and projections. And we don't have a lot of people that are the beneficiaries of those. So our research told us that we were being treated unfairly. They were coming after us because they thought we had the resources. We pointed out in court that there were other organizations that weren't taxed, or that's not the right word, weren't levied, or weren't requested to pay money. And so that's what we were fighting. But the bigger picture for me in the lawsuit was that they would not establish a threshold so that they could go up astronomically. And I just inherently thought it was unfair. So particularly in light of what we're hearing today with pensions and benefits, public employees, and great degree of sensitivity, we thought that we should challenge them to quantify why they wanted this money. And the courts did not accept that. So, we lost it the first round, we appealed it. The second round just required attorney fees. It wasn't going to be the excessive amount of fees that we had paid. And we lost there too.
Is it a matter, if I might, is it a matter that people are simply living longer? So they need to have
I think that may be part of it.
more money to fund their longer
But
retirement years?
The lesson I learned, that's part of it, Tim. The lesson I learned from this is that in those systems, they're looking at protecting the entire pool. And I don't know that perhaps there is a formula. I never figured it out, frankly, of how they do this. So there's almost a subjective element where they can just pass these fees on to the organization, and we decided it's unfair for us to bear this burden, and that's what we were fighting. up to date. I don't know when the next bill's gonna come in, but I can tell you it's not gonna go down. At least that's my sense.
So we're paying about $27,000 a month to OSERS for this bill, for this negotiated settlement, is that correct?
Well, we've been paying the monthly amount for the last few years. We've been paying that. So the only amount that
Where is that in the object code?
it's under 3,900s because it's actually considered a retiree benefit, believe it or not.
Okay.
That's in the 3,900. Contingency for 2019-20 was 292,000 for a year. 608, which is on that page, and so it's now recorded at a 3,900. The only amount of the settlement was actually the things that were legal fees that now they've called administrative fees that we paid to them.
And that was reason for the lawsuit that was initiated against the superintendent last summer, is that right?
Yes.
And that was settled when, November 6th?
I'm not even sure if we've made the payment yet. The date, the exact date of the settlement.
So you don't know how much you owe them?
It's close to $300,000. So that has been included in this budget.
If I told you you paid $461 and 801 and 72 cents, would that be something you would recollect, be aware of?
That could be, Ken, I feel a little lot of numbers, sorry. So
Who actually writes the check then? Because it'd be Dr. Maharis who would be signing the warrant, right?
Right.
For
so
such a large sum.
Right, so it's our administrator over,
Who would that be?
Patty Willows.
Okay.
So,
Now, are they gonna go after because there's other litigation? Because the money you paid was for the previous litigation.
it was
And then they have more attorney fees. Are they gonna go after you for that? You sure?
It's all, yes, it's all wrapped into there, including interest, by the way, which was way above normal interest.
Just one last point. We have, numbers are correct, 21 individuals that are receiving this money,
21 OSERS members, you said?
that were former employees of the Orange County Department of Education.
Renee, where's the 3,900 in this packet? I can't find it.
Normally, we've only been giving you the 4,000s through 6,000s because the salaries and benefits. So it's under benefits, so you can see it on page 37. And also on page 33. And so it's $464,113,000, Ken.
I'm sorry, page 33?
Yes.
Okay, and where's that under here?
It's under employee benefits. It says $464,113.
It's the fourth bullet point from the bottom.
Okay. Okay, so that's how much you paid them then? And that's a one-time cost of it?
Correct.
Okay. And then we had, on that same page, on the same topic, we had an increase in medical benefits of what, 2.3 million, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and so that's for active and retired employees?
We don't pay retiree benefits
Okay,
for medical benefits for anybody who retires.
okay, so they have to
They
get their
have-
own insurance,
They can purchase from us at the full cost.
okay. And then there was an increase in STRS of $1.2 million?
That's just the STRS on, oh wait, is that one? That's for the STRS on behalf. And so it's kind of a convoluted, the state pays a portion of the STRS pension for schools. And so they make us recognize that as both a revenue and expense, so as it shows as a liability on a financial statement.
Because we talked about this for several years now,
Yeah.
that this is gonna be an ongoing
It's
and
gonna-
growing problem.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna get any better.
No. I would assume next year, because investments may have not have done as well, you'll see some unlike PERS, who has actively changed their plan, STRS has, the employee now pays a higher cost than they had been. And so, and I think, you know, when we talk about the OSERS litigation, that was a frustration for us is members of PERS and STRS have paid employee portions for many, many years, and those have increased substantially. OSERS just recently, in the last 5 or 6 years, started charging employees a larger share. And, you know, because most of them are safety officers, and so they retire much earlier. And so they had actually an increased benefit from what our employees who were the OSERS plan did. And so that was part of our frustration with the OSERS is they have this enhanced plan, and they're trying to say that we owe more because their plan costs more money when we don't receive the same benefit.
So, the ending reserves, that's on page 35, is that correct? Under, item 15?
Correct.
Okay, so our ending reserves, and this is for, it's unrestricted, is that correct? It's $120 million plus. Is that correct? And then above that, we have, designated reserves, correct?
Correct.
And that's for how much? About, it's the same, isn't it?
So the ending fund balance is $249 million.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, you have $120 million for economic uncertainties, and then you have $83.6 million for specific programs and grants.
Mm-hmm.
$44.9 million for legally restricted programs, and then there's $70,000 for a revolving fund.
What's revolving fund again?
So we have 2 separate revolving funds, like for payroll and one for vendors. It takes us 2 or 3 days to process a check through our system. So if we have to write an emergency check, it's $30,000 for the vendors, and we have $40,000 for payroll. So if we miss paying an employee by accident, we write them a check that same day. That's what the revolving fund is for.
Mr. Superintendent, did you ever pay Mr. Rob Tyler, Mr. Rowland for the invocation protection litigation? Was that ever paid?
No, we haven't issued a warrant for that.
Why is that?
We're studying it.
What do you mean by studying it?
Well,
We were being sued, a potential litigation. We hired outside counsel to improve upon a policy.
we're reviewing.
And what happened was we hired Mr. Rowland and Mr. Tyler, and we approved it. And we got a good policy to prevent a litigation. And you're telling me you didn't pay for it? And you're studying it? Why?
Because the way we interpreted the law, you were supposed to still come to our general counsel to see if the general counsel could handle that lawsuit, could, get the opinion of the general counsel. And that didn't happen. Tyler Bursch was brought in. They were brought into the organization. And I get a bill for $7,000, I think it was.
Right.
So I've conferred with our attorney, because in some respects, this mirrors the same situation that we're in right now with Mr. Rowland.
Completely different. Completely different. This isn't general counsel. This was a potential litigation. You're telling me that now you're gonna, for a mere $7,000, you're not gonna pay them?
I'm not telling you I'm not going to pay them, but in the midst of these wheels that are turning with respect to the dispute over the general counsel, as I say, we're looking at it right now. We got the bill maybe, 3 weeks ago? I can't remember.
We approved it 3 months ago.
No, but we didn't actually get the warrant.
I gave the warrant to Nina.
Okay, I don't remember when that was. Nina, do you know? Was it 3 months ago?
It's been a couple of months.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date.
Okay, it could be, and I stand corrected if that's the case. So I will give you an answer. I'll make sure that I write the answer down to you so that you will be able to understand it from a technical point of view in terms of how I feel about that expenditure and when he will be paid.
So you're
The
telling the
deferral.
board that we can't hire an outside counsel for potential litigation, and you're gonna think about it?
That's not what I'm telling you. I'm telling you that there is a process that has to be followed under law. And it's that process that we're examining right now.
So we follow the Brown Act, we agendize it, we agendize closed session items, we follow the law, we follow the education code, we did everything perfectly, and you're second guessing us? That we didn't do it right?
I'm second guessing the process. I'm not ascribing a motivational factor in terms of, what people's thought process is. I'm looking at the process that we have to follow.
So if I didn't ask this question.
And this isn't not agendized to discuss. But
We're talking about legal costs on the budget. It is so agendized.
it isn't agendized per se to discuss this as a subject.
It has nothing to do with the legal bills under this particular item? I think it does.
Perhaps you can make a case for that, but looking at it specifically, if you want a more robust discussion on really examining the law, then I'm not prepared to give that to you right now.
No, I'm just very disappointed. Just like the Oster's lawsuit, your whole rationale for the Oster's lawsuit was very poor. You lost the department over $2 million, and how much did you owe Oster's? $3.3 million, and you spent $2 million defending it. UC Irvine owed 13.5. They didn't even argue about it. They said, yeah, we owe it. You spent $2 million of taxpayers' money when you only owed them 3.3. This is an exact same type of poor decision-making process. By not paying a small little bill for a legitimate service, you're going to end up by getting into another litigation.
$7,000, we'll see. If you want to talk about legal fees, we can discuss that too in terms of its entirety of the multi-million-dollar fees we're paying right now. We're going to be paying.
Right, and we could have had all this settled 2 years ago and not even had it. But there's education codes that we disagree with.
Yeah, and there was an option, and that was to stop all litigation.
Yeah.
You chose not to.
We worked hard to stop that in good
I'm
faith.
not going to talk anymore because we're in litigation on this.
What we're doing is we're going down the same path because your autocratic, despotic perspective of controlling this board, when we made good decisions for the public to decrease the liability of a potential lawsuit, we did everything we could to reduce that. We did it properly, lawfully, according to the Brown Act. And now for you to kind of sit there and tell this board that you're thinking about it, that is pretty much doing some things I'm not going to say in public, but it's very disappointing for your as a leader. You're doing a very poor job.
I'm being circumspect, Dr. Williams, and your opinion of me is your opinion. But I'm going to continue to run the department in accordance with my office. As you're elected, I'm elected. And we have a bifurcated set of duties and responsibilities with different authority structures. So right now, you retain counsel, I have counsel. We're just going to have to let it work through the court process.
Well, it could be settled, but you're not being reasonable about it. And this whole thing about not paying our attorney is incredible.
Your opinion, and I respect the entire board.
I don't think you respect us. You want to say something?
No, I don't.
Have I said enough?
Yes.
Want me to stop? That's pretty incredible. That's pretty incredible. Very disappointing. I don't have any more questions. Becky, do you have any questions? You declined at first. Now this is your opportunity.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of points, and back on page 23, my usual thing on professional development, and Ms. Hendricks already addressed it a little bit, but to show that we have decreased the travel and conferences and mileage by 51%, and then travel and conferences another 47%, and yet still maintaining a pretty good balance. We're a little bit over on the registrations, but I think that it is appropriate that we have decreased those in order to increase the opportunities for our staff. And I think probably, you can answer this, but probably it's more to get the staff sort of up to speed on distance learning and things like that. Sort of the sign of the times that we have to prepare our teachers a little bit better than they were because they didn't have to do this previously.
Yes, and also, there's been a lot of new restrictions under the LCT, and how you engage students has been a big focus. It's one thing to try and teach virtually, but to make sure you're engaging the students, and so that's been a big focus for our programs. So that's kind of where our focus has been for the last few months.
And just on page 24, the county board contingency, in the little chart there that shows 350,000. Could you talk a little bit about that, because there's a budgeted amount, and then is there a reserve amount as well?
Yes, and so in the adopted budget, Dr. Williams had requested to have an expenditure budgeted for $350,000, and there was also, they asked for a reserve to be set aside for the same amount. And so you'll see that when you look at the reserves, the listing of reserves, it's also listed there.
Okay. So we have 700,000 put aside for legal fees?
So you budgeted an additional, in addition to the 2 ongoing litigations, there's another 350 that's here as a contingency, and then you have a reserve set up of $350,000 also.
Okay.
Where's that reserve? I see the
If
contingency.
you look at page,
Yes, I saw that too.
it's on page, page 48. It says county board discretionary.
Thank you.
I think if I went back and looked at my notes, that was the language that Trustee Barkey had asked for.
Okay, I see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
But our reserves, the reserve for economic uncertainties on that same page at the very bottom, and also on page 39, that's $120 million. Refresh my memory, what's our mandated reserve to have?
For this site, we're considered a Class 2 county, and so the state requirement is 2%.
Okay, and what does that 120 million represent?
Above-
Percentage-wise.
Above 40%.
40%, okay,
That's above that.
okay, all right, thank you. Okay, that was all I had.
Any other questions? Okay, so I made the original motion to bring up the discussion of the budget here. I'm going to withdraw it, and I think Trustee Barkey, you seconded, so we withdraw your second?
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm going to make a new motion. I'm going to make the motion to approve the LCFF budget overview for parents. That's what you require, is that right, by December 15th? Okay, and then in addition to that, I'm going to ask that we're going to lay on the table until we have a little bit more thorough review of the DAT file, the remainder of the interim budget, pending the changes and the priorities that we talked about and that Trustee Sparks talked about on page 2. I'd like to see those changes in there. So that's my motion. I will need a second on that.
Second.
Need a second? Okay, any discussion?
Can I ask you to do 2 separate motions to include the college and career prep also? Because they're 2 separate plans.
Okay, so let me do this. Let me add an addendum to, in addition to the, let me strike that. I'm going to withdraw everything, and we're going to start over. The motion will be to adopt the college career, as well as the LCFF for parents, and lay on the table the interim budget for January for further discussion. And we'll be in contact. There may be a few other things that we will want in detail.
And what about the increases over 25,000?
That decision will be made. That's what I'm saying, laying on the table for January. Any of those increases.
Okay.
Okay. So, second by Mr. Shaw again?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, just to clarify something. Ms. Hendricks, do we have any other things that are required for us to do before the next board meeting? Any other portions of this budget? Those are the only 2 things that we
Well,
needed.
technically, the first interim in the code is supposed to be approved by December 15th. But
Okay, so.
So we're not approving that other part you said about,
We need more time.
We need more time. We
Okay.
just got the DAT file 2 days ago. We've been in trial
well, Dr.
over
Williams,
GC.
out of fairness, you asked for that DAT file Wednesday afternoon. And so it's not like we didn't respond to your question. The booklets were mailed out. This is a lot of work on my staff to try and do all this to give you the information you need. And so if there was specific information you were looking for, we could have tried to provide that ahead of time. That was not requested. You did not request the DAT file till pretty late Wednesday afternoon. My budget managers are working 16 hours a day, and so I let her go home a little bit early on that Wednesday, so I couldn't get it to you before Monday.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I shouldn't even really have to ask for it because you should know we want that file. We've asked it for the last 2 years, so.
No, you've only
Just
asked
as
for it
automatic,
last
what I would do, Renee, is just automatically give it to me. I'm not upset. We'll just,
Well,
we got it 2 days ago. We just haven't had time.
Well, if you're not going to use, we've given you a lot of information here, so I guess my frustration is that we've spent hours and hours putting this information together for you, and what I'm hearing you say is that's not enough for you, so maybe we're doing too much then in spending the amount of time we are if that's not going to meet your needs. Because the purpose of this was to meet your needs and to see what information we could give you to help you.
Yeah, if we weren't in trial, we probably could have been paying attention to this, but, what we can blame that on Maharis for putting us through all this, because that's all we're dealing here with.
Well, you know what, we need to stay on task here. I'm a little bit concerned that we have a budget that we have to approve by a certain date. And I think over the past couple years, we keep asking for more and more information, which I think you have provided to us. Things like over the 25,000, a list, I think, of the grants and things like that. I actually found this to be very, very helpful. I'm not sure maybe we could have a conversation with all of us?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Well, that's kind of my point here. We're having side conversations. I'm a little bit concerned that, what does the DAT file have to do with us getting this? I mean, we had this in hard copy. We got it last week. I think Thanksgiving was last week, right? So.
Yeah, I got it, I made the request on Wednesday. I didn't see it come before. It should be automatic. We've done this for 2 years, asking for the DAT file. We didn't get it, so it came when the staff came in Monday.
No, what I'm just saying is that we have been asking for more and more information on each of these budgets, each of these interims. The staff has continued to respond to our requests for information. I'm asking, why is the DAT file so important as opposed to this hard copy? that we have. I don't know about you, but I've got all kinds of markings and highlights and things that, you know, I have found helpful. I had questions about. I found additional information later in the budget. I asked my questions. You've asked questions that help answer some of my questions. But I get concerned that we keep missing deadlines here. So I'm not sure why we're stuck on that.
We're
Other
missing a lot
than-
of things. We're missing a lot of things,
Such as,
such as leadership, such as fairness, such as being honest with one another. We have a superintendent who's an autocrat and despot and believes that he has control over this board. He represents a state county education association that wants, this is within the county boards. There is a lot of politics that are going on here.
I
And-
agree.
and-
I
and-
think there's
and
too many
there is
politics
too much
going on.
politics, and it's really
Absolutely,
hurting
I
us
do.
here. And we have the right to do things as a board, and we're being ignored, marginalized, what I heard tonight about this OSERS. I mean, well, first of all, the whole OSERS thing was poor decision in leadership, which lost this department $2 million. But we're not on the same level and trust here. There's so much loss of trust here, and it's because of leadership. And I'm willing.
Well, I think we're part of that leadership,
I'm
too.
willing to compromise. Mary and I have been involved in significant compromise attempts in good faith, only to walk away and be extremely disappointed.
well,
So,
I think that, when you
when-
talk
when the-
about you and Mary, that's the executive committee, and not all of us are in those conversations, so I honestly, I can't respond to that because I don't know what you're referring to. But I just want to go back, stay on task here. I am concerned that we're not passing this budget, and we apparently have a deadline of December 15th.
Where is this deadline in the state education codes?
It says you need to pass the first interim by December 15th, and so I don't know the code off the top of my head. But as you remember, as a county board, you do not have to pass an interim report. It is requiring that you approve of expenditures above $25,000.
Right. We have to, and that's why we have to pass the interim, because the variances.
Well, you don't have to pass the interim. You can just, what you did last year is you only passed the increases over 25,000, but you didn't approve the budget. And so that's why I was asking, would you do that? And so that would meet the guidelines.
So when's if we pass this January 4th, once we get more information?
I think you're gonna do what you wanna do, so I don't,
What are the repercussions? What are the consequences?
Well, the repercussions are that we'll just report it to the state. And we'll just say that the board chose not to. You don't have to pass the interims, that's strictly advisory. But these $25,000 expenditures, you do have to pass. So if you need more time, you want to meet sooner than January 1, perhaps we can do it that way.
Yeah, so you take it upon yourself not to pay small little legal bills for things that were, for actions that were legitimate. And you want us to pass something. There has to be some sort of trust here.
You can't hold me hostage. Doc.
Well, you're holding us hostage.
No,
You're
no,
not
I'm
giving
trying
us
to make a
information
law.
on a timely basis, Al.
Look, we're adults. If you don't want to pass it, don't pass it. There are repercussions to what I say. These are state schools, funded by state dollars, governed by state law.
Dr. Sparks, your thoughts?
I'm thinking.
You're thinking, processing.
I mean, I appreciate the additional materials that you all have been giving us. I just need a little more time to go through everything.
Yeah, we've been busy.
Do we want to do what we did last year and just approve the variances over 25,000 without approving the interim budget? Do what we need to do for the state?
Well,
An option?
the whole purpose of this is for approval of the variances, because the interim is nothing that would pass. It's just an update of the checking account, in simplistic terms. But we haven't been able to have those real serious discussions like we did earlier on the budgets. And then to hear all this terrible decisions about not paying small bills, things that were legitimate. That's just very upsetting. And that's all because we don't have the checkbook. You have the checkbook. And you're really pushing us to an extreme here where we're not functioning when we can't hire legal counsel to protect this board and fear that you're not going to pay it. That's Al, don't you see that that's just terrible leadership, and that's building distrust between us? I mean, you sat there
I don't view it
today
the same
telling
way,
me
Doc.
about how angelic you were,
I don't,
about how you care about the kids,
I do.
and I think that was all very superficial. I just don't think it's sincere.
Well, you know, I'm not attacking you, you're attacking me, so.
Well, you're attacking the board. You're restricting the board from
That's a
doing their
figment of
publicly
imagination.
elected duty.
I mean, look, the point is, we have to agree to disagree on this matter. So we act like adults. Let's let it go through the process. We're in litigation. You sued me, I didn't sue you. And we just have to let it go through the process.
Yeah, I mean, if
But
we're adults.
We don't have to get personal. We continue to move ahead, and we do it for the sake of our students.
Yeah.
We want to set an example for them in terms of resiliency and grit that they're expected to demonstrate, and we're acting worse than them, frankly.
Well, look in the mirror, because to
Do
act
every
like
day,
adults,
and I have to repent every day, to be honest.
to act like adults, we agreed to disagree on certain issues. But when it comes time now, the board's ability to operate and to function, that's not good governance. That's not acting like a reasonable adult. To say to us that you're not going to pay legal bills, that means we cannot do anything in the future, because we're going to risk the credibility of this board by hiring outside counsel, by doing other things that are important, like a forensic audit that's necessary. So there's a lot of mistrust here, and you know, if we're going to talk as adults, we need maybe to sit down and talk about some negotiations, so there is equal trust here.
Yeah, I'm willing to do that. The problem we have right now is that we're in the middle of a lawsuit, and there's rules of engagement that we have to honor. But, you know, that's certainly, I welcome the opportunity.
Ms. Hendricks, there is a second interim budget, correct, before we do the budget again, the full budget?
A second interim should be adopted by March 15th.
Okay. So could we agree on these costs that are over the 25,000? And then whatever questions that we have about certain items, let's make sure we get that information for the second interim so that we can meet our deadline and then have plenty of time to make sure we have the analysis. Again, if we're able to get that information in plenty of time before March 15th. We're not meeting our own obligation by meeting these deadlines. So I appreciate Trustee Barkey trying to, you know, offer the suggestion of trying to approve those over 25,000. And if we could do that along with the other items that we have to approve, then we can come back with all of our questions. We can perhaps get the file that Trustee Williams wants so that we can do this in March or by March. Maybe do it, you know, give us a little bit more time. This is fine for me. I'm not sure why we need the DAT file, but if that's what Trustee Williams needs in order to give his approval, then maybe we can do that a little bit earlier.
So just to be clear on the DAT file for this budget, it's not just what you see here. There's a ton of accounting specific for us to even export that. And so that's why it takes us quite a bit of time to cut that file, because if we have an error in accounting structure, it actually will fail, and so you can't export it. So it's very difficult for me to get that file ready before all this is ready. And so what I was just, asking is, if this isn't helpful and this isn't meeting your needs, then maybe we should pare it back some, if that's not what you're looking for. This was put together based on things that you've requested and budget committees over the thing, but it feels like it's not meeting the needs, and so that's what was my question was.
Well, I think as I mentioned earlier, I think when Trustee Sparks and I, gave feedback on the budget, maybe a year and a half ago, that kind of gave birth to some of the changes that you made. And I think this is a wealth of information. And I'm not a budget wonk, so if it's good for me and I can figure stuff out, I think it's good, and I think the changes that we've made are very helpful. And we're meeting our fiduciary responsibility in pouring through this and making sure that we have what we need. I didn't quite enjoy having my Thanksgiving interrupted by doing all this, but that's what I was elected to do. So, if we had to give up our part of our weekend to get this done, then we should have done that. So, I'd like us to get this done so we can meet our deadline.
Yeah.
And then come back with the second and get some of your questions answered so that we can see them in the second interim.
Is Mr. Rowland, is he out there? Can he hear us?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. I'm just having technical difficulties.
A voice from heaven.
So Greg, even though you're not being paid, could you give us your counsel on this issue? What are we facing?
Well, you will get your money's worth then.
We'll get your money for it.
The only statutory obligation the board has is to approve the variances over $25,000. The board need not take any action on the first interim report. I think Ms. Hendricks was accurate in saying that that's what we did last year, and we had this same discussion last year. So the reporting to the state is also accurate, but that doesn't have any severe repercussions in and of itself. So I would recommend that you just approve the variances over $25,000 and get the information necessary on the first interim report, and leave it at that.
Okay. I appreciate your free advice, Greg.
Yeah, you get what you pay for.
I was going to say, I hope it's not you get what you pay for.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, Greg, if you're still on the line, so it's your recommendation to this board to approve the variances, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. President.
Okay.
I will make a motion
No,
to...
you can't.
Oh, sorry.
Because there's already a motion on. I have to remove my motion,
Sorry, just
and then
trying
you
to
can
move
make a
things
new one.
along.
Okay, I'm Mr. Parliamentarian. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, and you're going to withdraw your second. Now you can go ahead and make
It's
your
actually
motion.
Tim's second. Did you withdraw?
Or Tim's second.
I withdraw.
All right, I will make a new motion to approve the variances over 25,000 and approve the CCPA and the overview for the parents. Does that make sense? Maybe you might say that more diplomatically, but you know what I mean.
Nina, did you get that?
Approve the variance and the parent guides for CCPA and OCD, parents for OCDE programs.
Okay, so we have a motion by Trustee Barking, a second by Trustee Sparks on that. Any discussion on that?
I think we've had enough.
Do you think we've had enough?
Yes, I think
Okay.
we've had enough.
So, being that I don't see any more discussion, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those oppose. And were you an aye?
Yes, I was an aye.
Oh, okay. So the motion passes 4-1. Okay, moving on with our agenda, if I can take the prerogative to move up and go to informational items, so we can get Al's announcements and Nina's, and then we'll go into closed session. That way it's the fairest for the public who are still here. So, Al, if you could make your announcements a little more substantive? Yeah?
Huntington Beach City School District lands a new superintendent. So as you remember, Greg Hulk was the superintendent there, and then for a short time, Greg Magnuson served as an interim. So now it's Dr. Lysa Winston, whose career spans more than 20 years as an elementary special education teacher, program specialist, director, assistant superintendent, and deputy superintendent. And she's coming to us from Laguna Beach. So she's the new superintendent of the Huntington Beach City School District. And then also, despite the fact that we've had these issues at Sunburst with the virus, Spectrum News recently sent a crew to Sunburst Academy to highlight the many ways the military-style academic program is changing lives. With an 87% success rate, Sunburst changes the lives of over 200 students every year. And so we just want to salute our students, our families, and the staff at Sunburst, with Principal Dean Ishmael. I want to salute her work too, as well as Dr. Hindenberger. And that is all we have under my reports.
I think I read that somewhere, and that's why I thought that Sunburst was doing fine, because I read the great news, thought, oh, terrific, everything is swell, so.
Doing great.
Nina, do you have anything to report?
Just a reminder that the next board meeting is Wednesday, January 6th at 4:00 p.m. And submission deadline is Friday, December 18th. We'll be delivering the board packets on Wednesday, December 30th, due to office closures for the holidays. And this office is closed Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So, we'll be dialoguing with board members in case there are travel plans. Or
Is it possible to, I'm actually teaching until 4 o'clock on that day. Is it possible to bump our meeting by 30 minutes or an hour?
It works for me. I thought that we had decided 5 and 4 if we had a closed session before, so I'm always fine bumping it to 5. Is everyone else okay with that?
Yeah, so let's establish a consensus. Is 5 o'clock okay? I think the way it was before, 4 o'clock was if we had a closed session and we wanted to get that over with and get on with our meeting. So there's always kind of some flexibility built into that.
But 5 o'clock would be the public portion.
5 o'clock would be.
Yeah, I
Are you
think that's
fine with
fine.
that, Becky?
Yeah, yeah.
I want to make sure that there's just no consensus out in the parking lot that we do it here.
No,
the
no,
board.
I think 5 o'clock and 4 o'clock we have a closed session. But if we have 5 o'clock for the public, I think that's always good to do that.
So we had this conversation with the board last month with regards to also the fact that your website shows that you have 4 o'clock as your closed session. So again, I just asked you to think about whether or not we should make a change to the website so that the public knows that you're not starting at 4 and then going into closed session. You're starting at 5, and then you're having your closed sessions at the end of the meeting unless there's a need to move it earlier. So please let staff know if that is a change that you want us to make, because we just have a concern because questions come in. When are you going to start your meeting? And we continue to say, because we don't know until we're doing board prep, whether or not you're going to do it at 4 or at 5.
Yeah, I think the consensus here, tell me if I'm wrong, my dear colleagues, that we're going to start at 5, and occasionally if we have a really busy agenda where there's a lot going on, we'll start at 4 with closed session.
Okay, so
And so we might as well make that going forward.
you're okay with us making the change?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay,
yeah.
I just wanted, because
we have
last
to
month
vote on that?
we didn't do it because we still had the conversation, we would do it each month, so.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think as long as you're fine with that, my colleagues are fine with that, I think, consensus is fine. The other thing too, from the executive committee, we felt uncomfortable with improperly trained or lower trained security in our meetings. And the executive committee made an issue out of this, and this could be something I'd like to get your feedback from, because we can put it on as a formal vote action item. But the question comes down to, do we need armed security at our meetings? And there's times I just don't think we do, especially if you look at private security. They only require what we call an 832 course, which is only 40 hours of classroom and firearm instruction, and yet they're carrying lethal force into a meeting, which is not at risk, I think, for anything serious. So I don't feel comfortable with an unsheriff being here as security. If they're here just to monitor, make sure everything's fine, but not carry a firearm, I'm fine with that. The sheriff, again, I'm fine with the sheriff. The problem with the sheriff was that they kind of changed their business negotiation, and they required 2 deputies here. One would be what we call an SSO, Special Security Officer, as well as a sergeant. So I'm working with the number 4 guy at the sheriff department, and we're seeing what we can do to bring back our SSO at the less prices, or the lower rate. So I just wanted to make the board aware of that sort of thing. But I'd sure like to hear your input about.
I
Well,
think with the
hold on, this is not agendized, so,
It's just executive committee comments, that's all. We're not taking a vote or anything on it.
okay.
I'm
Well,
just
I
letting
would
everybody
suggest,
know.
I would suggest that we agendize this and get the information so that we can have an intelligent discussion, because this is the first time I'm hearing of this. And I'd rather have information as to, the qualifications that you apparently are concerned about. I think, I don't know that it's in our scope of responsibility. I think it's more of the superintendent's, but we can certainly have feedback on this. But I think we should agendize this.
Yeah, help me out historically, Nina. We asked for armed security, a sheriff, was that 2 years ago?
Approximately, I think it was maybe 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
The board was different. I mean, we had different board members. And we had a couple of incidents. One where someone got very outwardly making comments, doing some things that were inappropriate in the board room, and then had to be escorted out. And that same individual had also encountered one of our board members at another outside meeting, and there was some concern that he came back to the meeting. And so Mr. Winkert at that time sent him a letter, because we knew who the individual was. They had pulled a public comment card, and told him that, he was no longer able to come to the board meeting. And I can't recall the extent of the conversation, but as a result of that, the board had asked to upgrade security, because prior to that, we didn't have armed security. And I believe it was Ms. Lindholm who mentioned, because the board had some discussion with regards to armed or unarmed, and they asked the superintendent to provide security at the board meetings, and the superintendent did. And we met with Costa Mesa PD, we met with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, and to try to solicit, because that was one of the other questions, could we use law enforcement as opposed to private? Because we had been using a private company that's right next door to us, and they have both armed and unarmed security available. And at the time, Orange County Sheriff was the only one who was willing to support and provided a proposal. We moved forward with that, and we've had that in addition to special meetings and so forth where we were able to get the sheriff. We've had private security, and where we've had additional incidences, we've had to call the Costa Mesa PD, because the sheriff has indicated that they can be in the room, but there's certain things they were not willing or able to do that the board had to basically take position on certain things, and then they would call for Costa Mesa PD. And in terms of arresting individuals or any of that, that was what the deputies who were here had indicated. Since that time, we've had conversation, and I believe Ms. Hendrick received a proposal that substantially increased what we had been paying in fees, and reached out, had conversations with regards to why they were making the change, and some of that was based on the social justice issues that were occurring last spring, and people were showing up and very outwardly making comments and doing some things that were of concern for both staff and the board and the public at large. We again tried to engage Costa Mesa PD because we were concerned that the cost was prohibitive in terms of it didn't make sense for us to pay that amount of money for the individuals from the sheriff's department. And Costa Mesa PD again declined. They said they would patrol, but they would not have the dedicated person here. And then we had a brief conversation with the board a couple of months ago to say that there was some changes that were occurring as a result of this. Ms. Hendrick and myself also had a conversation with the executive committee, went into a little bit more detail. We vetted the fact that we were looking at the company that we have since hired, and also talked about their credentials. They do the security for Chapman University and are contracted there. They have former law enforcement officers that are, and they have some that are also still current law enforcement officers. So they have a combination of, and they have EMT and some others that have gone through training and work for their company. So Dr. Williams did send a communication the other day that he and Ms. Barkey had some concerns with the individuals being armed and the level of training that he perceived them to have. And since that time, asked Ms. Hendrick to dialogue with the company to find out. I don't know the level of, and I had another conversation with Dr. Williams this morning to say that not saying that what he indicated was inaccurate, it's just that was not information that I had knowledge on. So that kind of brings you up to date in terms of where we are, in terms of how we got here. But part of the conversation that we also had was, just as he mentioned, do we still need security in the same manner that, several years ago it was vetted and the board had indicated that they wanted security in the meetings and so forth. We did poll, previously other boards, local school districts don't have, some of them use their school police services. Some of them use in-house staff as their security. And other county offices, different things. But most right now during this pandemic, most are still operating virtually with the exception of a few. And so from that standpoint, even the city of Costa Mesa, when we reach out and dialogue about them providing officers, they say they're not even providing them for the city because they're meeting virtually. Their council is not meeting in person.
So how about this, as a board? We'll take your suggestion, Becky, that we formally agendize this, and maybe under a staff report on our agenda, we can have how much it's costing, the differences in the various agencies. I'll try, again, I'm working with my contact at the Sheriff's Department to see what we can do there, and we can present it formally to the board with more information.
Can I ask a question? Maybe you need to find this out. When you say there's different levels with a private security firm, can we request a certain level,
I'll find that.
Okay, yeah, because I'd like to know that too.
Maybe we can get that in the staff report.
Right, that's what
So
I'm
somebody
saying, yeah.
that's former law enforcement or
Right.
somebody who's
Right,
more
yeah,
of a
just
security
rather
level
than have
type
a million questions later, that way I'm trying to think of questions we might have.
And I wasn't finished with my Associate Soups before you mentioned that. So I just wanted to let the board know you have 6 public hearings scheduled for the January meeting. Because they're all charter school related, either
Oh my God.
they're renewals or, as we mentioned, you have 2 submissions that came in today, and so they will do a public hearing. Plus you have the ones from last month that will present next month. So I just want to remind the board that you are heavy after the holidays at that first meeting. So in terms of when you start, but also just the length of your meetings, potentially.
So eat your Wheaties over the holidays.
Very good. Okay. You are done then, Nina? Is that
I
correct?
am finished.
You're
Thank you.
done. We're done with Al. Any other board member comments? Tim?
No.
No? Lisa? Mary? Okay.
I just have one comment.
Yes.
You know, last month I recognized Francine Cinto for her 24 years of service in Tustin Unified. At that time, the election was not certified, and Tammy Bullard will not be returning, but she also had 24 years of service to Tustin Unified. So thank you for coming through on that certificate at the last minute. But I did present the certificates on behalf of the board to both Francine Cinto and Tammy Bullard for their years of service in Tustin. So thank you, Dr. Williams, for working with us at the last minute to try to get that certificate signed for
Well,
them. So
well,
they very much appreciated. Dr. Mahadas and I were both there to present that, and they were very pleased that we recognized them. So I just wanted to share that with you, all of you.
Very good. Thank you, Becky, for that. Okay, so the board will be in closed session number 1 and 2.
I'm trying to place her face here. Jenny Abney.
Okay, the Board of Education is back into session to report out from our closed session 1 and 2.
Good evening, members of the board. The report out from closed sessions 1 and 2 is as follows. The board had a discussion with legal counsel regarding session items number 1 and 2, and no action was taken other than approval of Epstein, Becker, and Green's invoices in the general counsel and the budget litigation matters. Those invoices are dated November 30, 2020. With respect to the invoice in the general counsel litigation, the vote of the board was 4-1 approving, with trustees Shaw, Barkey, Williams, and Sparks voting for, and trustee Gomez voting against. With respect to the invoice regarding the budget litigation, the vote was 4-1 to approve, and again, the vote was Shaw, Barkey, Williams, and Sparks approving, and trustee Gomez voting against. And that is the report out for the closed sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, barring no public comments, I assume? Nina, at
No,
this
we
time?
shooed them all away.
Oh, shoot them all away.
There are
Okay,
no public comments.
motion for adjournment?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Tim's out the door.
I got a